All I can say is that the fake news just doesn't get it, do they? They don't.
And here's the perfect example. I can't get over, to this day still, when they were so horrified and scared and lost their minds when a president of the United States went in front of a church across the street from the White House and held up a Bible. All right? I mean, how crazy does it get? It really seemed like they would have preferred the riot that had happened there just hours before. But possibly even stranger than the media's freakout was the freakout by our Secretary of Defense and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. But let's talk about the SecDef, Mark Esper. You see him there, just to the right of Trump? Well, he's written a book. It's kind of like an apology and explanation to the swamp. Oh, I didn't mean it. I'm a good guy. So he's selling this book, and he's trashing Trump everywhere he goes. And lefties like Colbert absolutely love it. Although there are kernels of truth here that I'm savoring. Take a look.
If I'd come out, I would have been fired, which is the president's prerogative, and he probably should have fired me on the spot. But my rationale is, if I'm not here to stop 250,000 troops to the border when the president proposes it prior to June 1st, who would be there when he wants to shoot missiles into Mexico? And if I stand up then and speak out, who will be there to push back on June 1st when he wants to send 10,000 paratroopers into the streets of America?
Or shoot the protesters in the legs.
And who will be there to stop the Venezuela talk in October?
All right. Some of these items don't seem that crazy to me, actually, especially border security. Can we take a look at the border, please, right? And we all know what happened during the summer of 2020. Law and order, to me, would have been preferable to some of these scenes, both at the border and throughout America. We elected Trump in part to think outside the box. And a lot of us are okay with outside the box thinking, but Esper, who's a slave of the swamp, can't handle it. And how about sticking up for people, huh? Look at what he says about somebody he worked with at the White House.
You don't have to be in the administration to smell the crazy coming off of Stephen Miller. You can see it a mile away. Are you surprised that that guy specifically, I mean, guys like that, but let's just go with that guy specifically, who was so redolently crazy and poorly informed and just balls out racist, would still get jobs right now? He is working for David McCormick's campaign in Pennsylvania, a supposedly reasonable Republican who hired him in order to get Trump's endorsement, but then didn't get it. And yet Stephen Miller is still sucking on the GOP political gravy because no one has the courage to put these guys out to pasture. Does that shock you that people that you know are terrible for America can still get jobs in mainstream political circles?
I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Yeah, he just wants to throw out anybody who is associated with Trump. How do you not get canceled if you've been associated with Trump? Be like this guy and turn against Trump. Hey, by the way, Stephen Miller is brilliant. He's not a racist. He had very, I think, advanced and he was ahead of his time on the border. He had great ideas. And to just sit there, as Colbert did, and call this man a racist, that's despicable. That's despicable. But I can tell you why Esper just went along with it, because he is a swamp figure. Here's one of his friends giving us his resume.
A West Point graduate and paratrooper, Esper spent 10 years as a by-the-book Army officer. And when he left active duty, he moved through the revolving doors of think tank jobs, Capitol Hill and Pentagon staff positions, and defense lobbying.
Right? Defense lobbying, Capitol Hill jobs, think tank, swamp, total swamp. And the swamp, they think they're in charge. The people, are you kidding me?
The opening pages, the first 5 pages, I talk about this dilemma. I wrestled with it. I talked to my wife, and my wife says, look, as your wife, please quit. But as an American, please stay. And I have to go so far as to contact my predecessors from both parties. I reached out to Colin Powell, the late General Powell, and he says, you got to stay, because I don't know who the president is going to put in behind me, right? And we see what happens on November 9th when I'm gone and the Pentagon is decapitated, and you get this whole crew of loyalists that comes into the Pentagon, and these things start happening, right? Attack Iran, withdraw troops from Somalia. It goes on. And fortunately, they only had, at that point, 60 days. Think if they had 8 months.
Loyalists. Obviously, he was disloyal. Loyalists. That's the way it's supposed to work. You see, the Pentagon, that entity doesn't work for itself, okay? He seems to think, as a bureaucrat, he knows better. And that loyalists, i.e. people appointed by the duly elected President of the United States, are not to be trusted, but nameless, faceless bureaucrats in that building, they are. That's not the way it works, buddy. All right. I wonder if I'll ever cross paths with him. Back to the big story, Buffalo, the shooting there. You know who's buying Joe Biden's every disparaging remark about this country and about Republicans and every self-aggrandizing statement about himself? The mainstream media.
It's not just the people who are openly stoking this hate online or on TV or even in the halls of Congress.
On TV, halls of Congress. What kind of hate are they talking about, and who are they talking about? They're not being specific. They're warming up to it, but they're hyping, they're distorting, and they're doing a lot of lying. More?
But the people who don't say stop, the people who don't call it out, that is seen. I mean, you can look at studies and conversations that people, experts, journalists have had with white supremacists. When they hear silence, that is a green light to them.
Everybody calls out white supremacy. Nobody believes in white supremacy. How about you and your liberal friends, and obviously your liberal friend in the White House, Joe Biden, call out Waukesha, call out terrorism committed by black identity extremists, because it does happen and it goes totally unacknowledged by our government and by our culture. One more thing. The media, sometimes they say they just hate reporting the news. Take a look at this.
Frankly, I hate this part of my job on days like this because I have to come on TV and tell people that Congress is going to do nothing on this. There is no path to 60 votes on any measure on guns, whether it be expanding background checks, which is already passed in the House, whether it be to try to raise the purchasing age for someone to buy an assault weapon. You have to be 21 to buy a Bud Light, but you don't have to be 21 to buy an assault weapon. Bills like that occasionally get discussed, they pop, but there is no appetite on the Republican side to do anything on guns.
So he's supposed to be neutral, and he regrets that there's not more momentum with gun control legislation. People have disagreements about those bills, those measures. 18, 21 to buy a Bud. Well, you can be 18 to go to war and vote. These are debatable. You know, he reminds me of what Rush Limbaugh said. He's upset today that he has to report this, but tomorrow it's on as something else. What did Rush call it? The drive-by media. The drive-by media. I'd like to use that myself, but no, that belongs to Rush.